I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested this morning at a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
Welcome back to the show. What is up? What is up? I'm Daniel. I hope everybody can hear me okay. If you can, give us a like. Let me know in the comment section if you can't hear me correctly, but I think I'm coming in loud and clear for everybody. Welcome to the DT show. Today, we have a excellent show, in my opinion. We're going to be going into a couple of the documents that were dropped, something that was pointed out to me, so to speak. And you know, people are funny. You know, I got this pointed out to me, this part of this document, and people and this specific person's telling me that they were vindicated, that Bryan Kohberger didn't do anything with any students, yada, 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 at WSU. This proves it, da, 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 da. And I was like, well, let me look at it and let's look into it. Let's look at everything about it. And so without further ado, well, first and foremost, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. And, you know, I haven't done this in a while, so I'll probably have to do this right now real quick. I have to bring up our sponsor. I have to. I haven't done it in a while. Our sponsor is Data Seal. If you have any questions or concerns about your privacy, whether it's your name, date of birth, phone number, social security number, your religious preference, voting preference, any of those type of things on the interwebs, check out Data Seal. We have a link in the description and give you a 5% discount. All right, without further ado, let's go and let's get into it. All right, so this is going to be this is the document. Let me pull this up real quick. This is referencing the motion to strike the death penalty, autism spectrum disorder. And I was highlighted to page 25. I was like, all right, well, let's read 25. And, you know, this is the document where basically Bryan Kohberger's defense team is stating that Bryan Kohberger should not be, if found guilty, shouldn't be held to the full extent of justice because of a disorder of autism. So let's read this out loud real quick. It says outlets ranging from the New York Times to true crime video bloggers. I think that would be me, right? I'm the true crime video blogger. Have assigned nefarious meanings to symptoms of Mr. Kohberger's autism system. ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Multiple news sources have, for example, focused on Mr. Kohberger's social deficits, particularly as they relate to his interactions with women. All right. So right there, Bryan Kohberger's defense team is admitting there that there are some interactions with women that didn't go as normal. And that the reason why that these interactions with women didn't go as normal was because of his ASD. So they're already acknowledging some interactions. All right, let's continue this. NBC News accused Mr. Kohberger of making creepy comments to female staff at a brewery. Minnie Vaughn Burke and Dion J. Hampton, suspect in Idaho killings, made creepy comments to brewery staff customers, owner says. NBC News, December 31st, 2022. The New York Times ran an article alleging that Mr. Kohberger made female students at Washington State University feel uncomfortable. Though an investigation by the university cleared Mr. Kohberger of any wrongdoing. And this is the part that was pointed out to me. See, he didn't do anything wrong. He got cleared. And described how he lost his job as teaching assistant due to his failure to meet norms of a professional behavior in his interactions with the faculty. And so a lot of people tell me that they're vindicated. Bryan Kohberger didn't do anything wrong at Washington State, yada, yada, yada. Well, the reason why he got fired was because he had several physical altercations with John Snyder. This was his professor there at WSU. And, well, let's take a look at John Snyder's background real quick. John Snyder, he graduated from University of Idaho with a law degree in 1988. He's a professor. He first came to WSU as an adjunct in the midst of his 30-year law practice. During his career, he defended nearly every type of criminal case from simple possession to first-degree murder. And so he's been around people who've been accused of some nefarious things. That's the reason why he got terminated. But in order for Mr. Kohberger to be clear of something, then there must be an investigation. And in order for there to be an investigation, there must be an accusation. And what do we know? We know that Bryan Kohberger had some issues early on. And part of those issues had to do with women. And there was something called the Bryan tally, which I have all these things put together. We're going to listen to them all. I brought my receipts. And there was a Bryan tally. And how these students were documenting disturbing behaviors of Bryan Kohberger. Now, who's doing this investigation, right? That's important. This isn't a police investigation. This is an investigation from the college. So what does that say? That says that nobody's getting a warrant for his whereabouts or his phone or his pings or any of those things. It's merely, all right, what did he do? And Mr. Kohberger, what did you do? So it becomes a he said, she said, unless there's some sort of documentation. Now, he'd only been there for a short period of time, moving there in June of 2022, having issues as early as, September, October, somewhere around there is when he started to have issues at WSU. Is it possible that while they were investigating this crime, they said, hey, you might want to start documenting some of the incidences. We agree with you. We believe you. He's having an altercation with Professor Snyder over here. He's acting a fool. He can't control himself. You need to write it down. You need to document it, because if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And so they did. They put it down. You have to ask yourself, why did they put it down? Well, obviously, there was some sort of investigation in where they say, hey, we can't do anything because all it is a he said, she said, unless you start writing things down. And there's documentation, there's witnesses, there's people who can attest to what you're saying. And it had to have been bad for them to have started this so early in his TA career. But you can't have him cleared of an investigation without some sort of accusation. And so in this document here, where although Bryan Kohberger's defense team is trying to, use this, his autism as a reason why he was acting in the manner that he was acting, that created the accusation, that created the investigation, that ultimately cleared him for this specific part, not necessarily for his behaviors with his professor, right? But they cleared him from here because why? Well, when it comes to students, the word of one student to the word of another student, it's weighed out evenly. But when it comes to, for instance, a professor, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. Natalie James comes in with a $49.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Natalie. I appreciate that. Appreciate you keeping the story relevant for the victims and presenting the facts with integrity. DTS rocks. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. And so, as you can see, there had to have been some sort of investigation. There had to have been some sort of accusations. We'll go over and we'll go through what some of those accusations are. We'll actually look at the New York Times article that they're referencing here right now. And then we'll go and listen to a couple of clips that I have about from different students who stated some things about Bryan Kohberger. So this thing continues to say, if true, these allegations can be easily explained by Mr. Kohberger's ASD, given the difficulty interpreting social clues. People with ASD may misconstrue social niceties as romantic interests. That's important right here. This is important. They're saying that he misconstrued social niceties as romantic interests. So the problems that he had with the females that he was bothering were because he assumed that they were romantically interested in him. This is the defense's paperwork, by the way, guys. His problem is right here. Let me highlight this right there. He misconstrued social niceties as romantic interest. And that's the problems that he was having when it came to his issues at WSU and with women. And so we can probably figure that he was trying to be nice to certain women, and then when they probably didn't take to his advances, he started to give them bad grades, things of that nature. Now, again, he got cleared of any wrongdoing at that time, but at that time, who was investigating him? It wasn't the police, it was the school. And what can they do? What can they do? What is an administration going to do if somebody's just saying, hey, he's looking at me creepy, he's following me, he's doing this, he's doing that? There's not much they can do. It's a he said, she said type of situation. Unless there is some sort of documentation, which, again, they asked him to do that. Curious Contrarian says, most guys misconstrue smiles and politeness with flirting. I mean, yeah, but do most guys then turn that into something that would have multiple women filing complaints against them to the point where they were documenting things? That's where the line is crossed, right? Like there's the normality of things where sometimes guys will think something of nothing, but there's also going a little bit too far with it to the extreme and then not being able to control yourself with your urges to the point where he ends up doing what he ends up doing allegedly. It is also no surprise that Mr. Kohberger came across as socially awkward and that he struggled to adapt to professional norms. These impairments are hallmarks of his disability. All right. What do y'all think about that? I don't know. I'm just let's go to the New York Times article that they were referencing. That'll be better. Let's talk about this specific New York Times article. We'll go here. All right, this one is University investigated Idaho murder suspect behavior around the time of the killings. Bryan Kohberger had a verbal altercation with a professor who was investigated over his behavior around female students before he was charged with the 4 murders. And right here, get it, female students, plural. The PhD student charged with murdering 4 of University of Idaho graduates displayed such troubling behavior in the weeks around the killings that his university investigated his conduct around women, counseled him over a verbal altercation with a professor, and ultimately fired him from his job as a teaching assistant, according to interviews and university record. So who do you think they're interviewing? Who are the sources here? It sounds like the sources are going to be students and faculty. Right? All right. So it's not just some random people that they're pulling off the streets in some random town. These are going to be students that are associated, are familiar with, have been around Bryan Kohberger, and faculty that have some sort of familiarity with him. Less than 2 weeks before the killings in November, the PhD student Bryan Kohberger was called to a meeting with the faculty members to discuss growing concerns about his behavior. According to the record, a timeline of the university prepared justifying the decision to terminate him. The meeting was a series of discussions over Mr. Kohberger's conduct during his criminology studies at Washington State University, which lies about 7 miles west of the University of Idaho. The faculty concerns with Mr. Kohberger grew in the weeks after the killings, though he had not yet identified as a suspect. They accumulated in the Criminal Justice Department's unusual decision to terminate Mr. Kohberger from the teaching assistant role in December, shortly before his arrest, according to 3 people familiar with the time at the university and his formal letter to Mr. Kohberger informing him that he had failed to meet the conditions required to maintain his funding under the program. The faculty made the decision at the department's end of the year meeting in December, during which professors were also told that some female students, multiple female students, reported that Mr. Kohberger had made them feel uncomfortable. In one of those instances, Mr. Kohberger was accused of following a female student to her car. According to 2 people familiar with the situation who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the case. Somebody who's not authorized to discuss the case. Sounds like something legal. Somebody professional, I mean, not legal. In the case of the female students, the university investigation did not find Mr. Kohberger guilty of any wrongdoing, 2 people said, and it was other matters that prompted the decision to eliminate his funding and remove him from the teaching assistant job. The decision, they said, was based on unsatisfactory performance as a teaching assistant, including his failure to meet the norms of professional behavior. So it's his behavior, whether it was with students or faculty, which is what caused him to lose his job. It wasn't something about anything else other than his own behavior in his interactions with the faculty. Mr. Kohberger began having troubles about a month into the fall semester. A month. Jesus, a month. I mean, it's not, this is the first time he's lived alone. There might be a reason why it started now at 28. A lot of people ask, why did it start at 28? Well, he lived with mommy and daddy up until then. First time he gets to live alone, within a month of starting his job, he's having problems. About a month after into the fall semester, his first at Washington State, he had an altercation on September 23rd. When did school start? September 1st, somewhere around there? August 30th? Jeez, man, that's within a month. And again, he had an altercation on September 23rd with John Snyder, the WSU professor he was assisting. And so we've talked about John, a former lawyer, according to the termination letter, a copy of which was obtained by the New York Times. Then on November 2nd, the department leaders met with Mr. Kohberger to discuss an improvement plan. The letter recounts 11 days later, the 4 University of Idaho students were stabbed to death overnight in a home just off the campus in Moscow, Idaho. In the termination documents, officials described a second altercation that Kohberger had with the professor after the killings on December 9th. I wonder how different those 2 altercations were. And I wonder if John Snyder is going to end up taking, I'm sure he will, but I'm sure he will. I'm sure he's going to take the stand and talk about his interactions with Mr. Kohberger. And I want to know how different those interactions were. Although there were both altercations, was the second one more severe because this was the one that decided to remove him from his position as a teaching assistant fairly quickly. fairly quickly after this one. There was no warning, no one more chance. Not this is your second strike. Third one you're out. This was it. So I wonder how much more severe this was, because remember we had Howard Bloom on the show. If you guys haven't gone back and listened to the interview with myself and Howard Bloom, I've had him on 2 different times, I believe. Once before I read the book and once after. And the second time he had some breaking news and he dropped some big bombs, so to speak. You might want to go and check that out. But he talked about an argument that Bryan Kohberger had with his father, and that almost got physical because of the direction of travel that Bryan Kohberger wanted to take. He wanted to go a longer route versus the traditional route to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, back home on December, what was it, like 13th, 1 month to the day. He fled the Pullman area to go back home. All right. On December 9th, later that month, the department, or I'm sorry about that. So Mr. Kohberger had an altercation with the professor after the killings on December 9th. Later that month, the department decided to remove him from his position as a teaching assistant, cutting off his pay and saying that he had not made progress regarding professionalism. I mean, that could be a reason or justification, right? If it increased, right? Not only did it not get better, it got worse. And I think that would be the justification for termination, because even just not making progress. Yeah. Phil Weiler, a vice president and spokesperson for WSU, said a federal student privacy law prohibited him from commenting in the detail of Mr. Kohberger's history with the university. He said only that Mr. Kohberger was no longer enrolled at the university. Mr. Kohberger's lawyer did not respond to a message seeking comments. All right. Let's see. Times previously reported that students complained about Mr. Kohberger harsh grading in his teaching assistant role, resulting in a classroom discussion in which he sought to defend the feedback he provided the students. So not only was it with a few female students, but this was multiple students, like as I mentioned, that were having some problems with him. Some of them were just these grading things, and some were a little bit more nefarious. Let's see. All right. That'll be it for that one. Let's move here. Let's look at a couple of super chats. And if I noticed one thing. I wasn't going to do it. No, I'm not. I will try this next time. This huge donation right off the bat by Natalie James. Next time, and what I'll probably be doing from here forward is I'll be doing what's called like a super chat goal. If we can hit like 15 super chats in a live session, I'll do a 25 to 30 minute Q&A session afterwards. I normally do one anyways, but for sure we'll do one if we hit that goal. But we'll do it next time. Natalie hooked us up. Let's see. Curious Contrarian 199 comes in with her super chat saying, I have autism and I don't murder. #Asperger's. Miss Doglover comes in with a $4.99 super chat. I hope you are feeling better, Daniel. Sounds like you've been through a lot. Thank you both. I appreciate you guys. Stephanie comes in becoming the newest member. After the show, I'm going to drop the newest link for the Discord for our new members. Thank you guys. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Curious. It's not just the autism stuff. This guy, he's using that so that they don't take his life. He's just throwing everything at the wall, trying to and hope something sticks, right? And with Miss Doglover, I feel a lot better. I do. I feel tremendously better. I would be lying if I said I didn't. I feel better. All righty. Well, let's get into some of the audio stuff that I wanted to listen to. So let's break this down. You guys have it, and here in a little bit, I'll break it down, and then I'll check some more super chats and stuff like that. All right. So which one do we want to do first? We did the New York Times one. We knocked that one out of the way. Let's see. Let's do let me bring it up real quick. We'll do the killing on King Road. Okay. All right. So I got this set up. I hope I can play this right.
It's a piece.
All right. Now, here's the thing I do have to do. I'm going to have to play some music in the background because of I know it's going to be bad. No, a lot of people don't like having to listen to the music in the background. If I don't play this, I'll end up getting copywritten and a bunch of other things for the stuff I'm fixing to play. All right, so what we're going to be listening to right now is going to be the killings on King Road. I have a couple of things that are outlined here that we're going to be listening to, and this is going to be referencing Bryan Kohberger's past. Let's do it.
Piece of the mystery surrounding Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah, hold on. Where? I need to slow it down. I have it going way too fast. But there it is. That's why. All right, give me 1 second, guys. Hope you guys enjoy the music. All right, here we are. Just because of, I thought that was interesting that obviously Bryan Kohberger was studied under Katherine Ramsden at the sales. You know, everybody knows that. But everybody talks about this book that had something underlined. Remember that? You guys remember that, right? I remember that there was a book, and in this here clip, they talk about a specific book that was taught that Bryan Kohberger had, and it was Confessions of a Serial Killer. This was the BTK autobiography that Katherine Ramsden helped write. I don't know if it's the same book or not, but they made it seem like, hey, there's a book that she wrote that he read, you know. But this was also because it was under a class under extreme violence, an extreme violent class that Bryan Kohberger took. Would you imagine that? Bryan Kohberger taking an extreme violence class. Now, this book everybody had to read again is Katherine Ramsden's book, The Confessions of a Serial Killer. This is page 118. I don't know if this is the right book, but we'll read page 118, okay? Real quick. It goes, "We're tied with a yellow piece of clothing. A red piece of clothing bound her hands behind her back. The home was remarkably neat and clean." See that's starting to be interesting right there, right? Because everybody right now is talking about how there's no blood, this, that, and the third, which I explained that, the doors were closed and that the scenes were contained to the individual bedrooms. There was not much of anything that traversed from one area to the other. The scene was contained in each bedroom. And here it states that the home was remarkably neat and clean. Although a burned down cigarette was in the ashtray and a purse had been dumped on the table, the heat was uncomfortably high. The phone receiver was on the floor. Jewelry boxes had been disturbed, and a pair of pantyhose lay on the bedroom floor. Police found pry marks on the window lock. A pink sweater covered Fox's body. Her panties were pulled down, and 2 pairs of pantyhose were wrapped around her neck. Semen stains were on a blue nightgown found near her head. The cause of death appeared to be strangulation. I'm not saying this is the book, right? I mean, I don't know if it is or not. I couldn't tell you, but that'd be crazy if it is. It sure would be. All right, let's continue this. Oh yeah, I got to go back to the music, unfortunately. Let's see. There's something else I wanted to point out here. Let me fast forward that real quick. And I think you guys will like this part.
Was an item that would play an outsized role in his future. Infamous.
I was like, yo, Bryan Kohberger bought a K-bar knife off of Amazon, and then they're going to go air it out. You know what I mean? That's not how that works. They're going to you got to double check some things, right? And it sounds like they had multiple sources on this. But you know, I thought that was interesting that he purchased the K-bar and the K-bar knife sheath around the time that he was applying for a position as an intern police officer. I wonder if he had other plans. Maybe perhaps his plan was to be was maybe abducting somebody. Well, and this is just me speculating, you know. Could he have ever had the thought that he was going to utilize a potential position? Interesting stuff. Let's fast forward this a little bit.
As the 20
Again, that's kind of like what I was saying right now, you know? He was trying to go into law enforcement. Did he have some sort of nefarious plans with that position beforehand? You know, did he orchestrate a potential break-in? And what would make them think that he orchestrated the break-in that you know, maybe perhaps sent that female that way? You know, maybe perhaps it had something to do with those IDs inside of a glove, inside of a card box or whatever. Maybe they found some IDs there that belonged to somebody else. Obviously, they didn't belong to the, well, let me put it this way. I know for a fact that they didn't belong to any of the victims from 1122 King Road, or at least any of the victims that are no longer with us. I couldn't tell you if they belonged to Dylan or Bethany, but I know for a fact they didn't belong to anybody that passed. I don't know who they belonged to, but could, you know, this report came out after that discovery had occurred. And a lot of the stuff that was being spoken about at that time, during this time, was that Bryan Kohberger had basically installed some cameras like they mentioned here, and was watching somebody close to him. But they didn't know he was a suspect of that until after the murders. Now, what would make them believe that? Maybe some things that went missing from that place. I don't know. And a lot of people are saying, well, because I've seen this before in the comment section, why aren't they charging him with other things? They may have. It just probably is sealed until after this one's taken care of. Let's continue this. Let's move this on a little bit to after the murders, how he was acting.
the murders, or house before graduation, and was due to leave soon for a trip to Europe and then take a job in Texas. But that weekend she'd gone back one last time to Moscow to hang out with her friends.
Give me 1 second.
The one who'd been...
And so basically the part that I wanted to hear when it came to that was the fact that there was a difference in behavior before and after the murders that occurred. I just found that to be kind of interesting, you know. I think most people would. Now, this is that last part I wanted to talk about. This is let's play it. This is from the King Road killings.
Timmy and I went looking for anyone who was close with Kohberger during the few short months he was there. We visited places Kohberger might have frequented, coffee shops near campus, the vegan restaurants in town. Kohberger adheres to a strict vegan diet, and there aren't many places in town that cater to vegans, so we hoped one of their employees might remember him. No luck. And as for friends, people who knew him well, we mostly struck out. ABC did track down one of his former students, though. As a PhD student, Kohberger taught undergrads. He worked as a teaching assistant, a TA. Hayden Stinchfield was in one of his classes.
He was pretty distant, never was super engaged with us, which, I can't super blame him for because being a TA doesn't seem super fun. He answered a lot of questions with sort of canned responses that he clearly thought of before. He'd look at the ground when he was up at the front of class, and then he would be grading us pretty harshly and leaving a bunch of notes. So clearly he was passionate. It was just like when he was in front of us as a class, he just was never like super open.
So the first thing about this Killing on King Road podcast, this one is, gosh, I think this one's it's an Apple podcast. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. But on this one here, it starts off saying that they couldn't find anybody that associated with Bryan Kohberger. I mean, the people that they found that associated with him, they one time went to a pool party with him and never spoke to him again. And he was a neighbor. You know, who's Bryan Kohberger's dad this is the person that Bryan Kohberger's dad had to go and ask to hang out with his son, remember? Let's continue this.
Most people just sort of got the vibe from him that he was grading us a little too harshly and that he was a little bit weird when he was actually in class. Not like, you know, any serious red flags or anything, but just a little off and a harsh grader.
After months of trying, we were finally able to get an exclusive interview with one of his fellow PhD students. We wanted to shed light on Kohberger's time inside the program, a place where he only spent a few short months in the fall of 2022. The fellow PhD student agreed to speak with me on the record, but she didn't want me to include her name or voice in the podcast. It's a small program, and they felt under siege from public interest in the case since Kohberger's arrest. Yet, she did have some things she wanted to tell me. From the beginning, she says Kohberger seemed to have a hard time fitting in. Where his master's professor at DeSales gave him high marks, this fellow PhD student at WSU described Kohberger as difficult and unpleasant to work with. She said he was sometimes rude and condescending. She remembers a few times that he became angry over seemingly minor issues, like being docked a point or two in class. On these occasions, she said, Kohberger's face would turn bright red, and he clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. I spoke with a second colleague from the PhD program who corroborated these descriptions of Kohberger's behavior. The first PhD student told me that Kohberger lacked respect for people's boundaries. In one instance, Kohberger apparently developed a crush on another classmate, repeatedly asking her out and staring at her. This allegedly made her so uncomfortable that the other students made a point of never leaving the two of them alone together. According to the PhD student I spoke to, Kohberger's fellow PhD students began tracking his behavior that bothered them, especially what they saw as disrespect toward female professors. They wrote down how many times he interrupted female professors or skipped their classes. They called it the Bryan Tally.
The Bryan Tally. Man, that should have been the title of this dang show. Bryan Tally. They documented all these things about him. When he was with, who he was with, like as far as being disrespectful, disturbing behaviors, undermining authority. He developed a crush. And it didn't work out so good. Remember the documents that said niceties? He confused niceties for romantic interests. And that there were incidents that turned into allegations that resulted into an investigation. Although clearing Kohberger, this was not a police investigation. This was a, what did you do? What did you do? He said, she said investigation. I wonder, since Bryan Kohberger's arrest, if we're going to find out what WSU couldn't. You know what I mean? I think so. Let's hear a little bit more of this and then we'll answer some questions.
Kohberger's classmate told me they thought something was off. As a group, they were raising red flags and telling higher-ups. The university can't speak due to privacy concerns, but we know Kohberger would later face repercussions. In Kohberger's job as a teaching assistant, the fellow PhD student we spoke with told us Kohberger held his office hours at unusual times, sometimes late into the evening rather than the more typical daytime hours. She began sticking around after some of her students complained that he would make them feel uncomfortable during their meetings. Students alleged Kohberger closed the door, which is against protocol, or placed himself between the student and the exit, so they felt compelled to stay in his office. Kohberger also developed a reputation for being a tough grader, sometimes to the point of frustrating his students. Hayden, the student we spoke to, recalls one incident that seemed to leave everyone in.
Oh, I know somebody's bringing up another creator in the content in the chat. I have disproven that dude on every single thing he's ever said. I mean, it's not even funny. I can't even listen to these videos because he gets so much things wrong. But it is what it is. Another person said something that caught my eye real quick. Let's see. An outlet early on has a video of saying that scene with an Asian female they go in to say Bryan was seen that night in front acting normally. Oh, yeah. Go look at the PhD students and the 2 PhD students that at the time, I don't know if you can see this, but there was 2 PhD students alongside Bryan Kohberger, and I think one of them was of Asian descent. I wonder if it's the same one. But what he was doing early on and what he was doing later on that night are 2 different things. You know, those are 2 different things. I've seen said video. I have said video that you're referring to. I think it was a British news station or something like that had an affiliate out here, and he was a guy driving and he was in front of the parking lot, and he doesn't necessarily say that he was there that night, but that they had often regularly seen him with an Asian female, I believe is what he said. Not necessarily that he was with her that night or any of those type of things, but I'll go back and listen to it. Either way, so what was he doing at this time? And does that mean that all these other people were lying? Because at one point, let's go back and talk about the thing that happened at the house with the cameras. At one point, she went up to him and asked for his help. So that probably means that Bryan Kohberger is not going up to people and saying, "Boogly boogly, I'm the boogeyman," right away. You know what I'm saying? Be afraid of me. No, he's probably talking to them like a normal person. It's probably during multiple interactions with the guy that you probably start to figure out something's off. You know what I mean? And then the more you're interacting with him, it probably don't take much. I mean, all these complaints started coming fairly quickly. I mean, he did lose his job. That's no surprise. I mean, that's no secret. It's not for nothing. There was an action plan that was real. You can't have him get cleared of something without an investigation, and you can't have an investigation without an accusation. I don't get where we're at this point. I don't understand what you're arguing. Let's look at some super chats. We have Steelers fan, member for 18 months, freeloading 24/7, 365 days a year. We have L Hitch, Daniel, love your chats. Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm sure the chat appreciates it as well. And we have the newest member, Carol. We're taking your questions and comments. Please put a couple of stars. I'm a little bit behind on the live chat. I'll try to catch up, but let me know what you guys think. I think it's if you ask me, which I know you are, I think it's a pretty clear indication of what type of person this guy is. Right now, he's using his autism as an excuse for the reason of the way he acted. But remember, what has him on the spectrum, according to the defense? It was his lack of reciprocity, or you cannot replicate or reciprocate the emotions, feelings. That's exactly what it had said. And this was the defense's paperwork. And this is the one where they wanted people to, not call, well, this is the autism one, but then they also have the one where they don't want to call him a psychopath or a sociopath. They don't want to hurt his feelings. I didn't have any. Let's see. I agree, Keith. I wonder with Kohberger's visuals. No, I'm shocked that he even cares so much if he lives. I think Ann Taylor wants him alive more than he wants himself to be alive. No, man, he had, according to his writings and text messages and things of that nature, something about like illusions of grandeur. Um, he thought he could be this. He wants to be like this biggest, baddest person. I don't know. Um, he wanted to solve high profile crimes. I think that's where it was going at, and he wanted to be this world renowned detectives. Well, his world was falling apart, right? So he was never going to be in law enforcement. He has a drug addiction in his past. He's lost every job he's ever had that we know of, at least. Um, he was kicked out of the law enforcement group, sent to go to the HVAC class where there's no females, and that was emphasized that he went to a class where there was no female students. And then he didn't even finish that off. He ended up finishing the year online and then finishing his senior year online due to whatever it was that he did in the law enforcement class and throughout that school year. It didn't just finish at the law enforcement class, it continued. He didn't finish his junior year in classroom, it was online. His entire senior year was online. And then he gets a job as a security guard, and then he's forced to resign. Now, I know some people might say and point to one thing or another that they were letting go of some people, and they were. But Bryan Kohberger was the lowest person on the totem pole, and he was replaced. When you're going through budget cuts and stuff like that, you don't replace the person, and the persons that you usually cut aren't typically the lowest of the totem pole. If you're cutting the lowest on the totem pole, you're not replacing them, right? Usually you're replacing some of the people at the top with some people that are somewhat experienced, but they're starting off, maybe new to the company. That way you're not paying them a huge salary from being there for multiple years, yada, 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 right? That's business. Anyways, they cut him and they replaced him. And he wasn't on. So they had this whole list. I went through it. I went through the transcript. We have a video on it. We went through the transcript of the, it was the town hall meeting that spoke about Bryan Kohberger and his, it didn't really speak much about it. It just had his name there, that he was being terminated or forced to resign. There, and then what drops out there is a deal that says that a termination or a resignation letter that says that he understood that if he didn't resign, that he could be terminated. So it wasn't oh, hey, here's my 2 weeks notice, I'm taking another job, appreciate you guys, hope to work in the future. It was, I understand that if I don't quit, that you guys are going to fire me. Now, why would they do that? Well, at the time, both his parents worked for the school district, right? His dad is a janitor, and I think his mom was like some sort of counselor, teacher, something, I don't know. But I know his dad was a janitor there. And they give him another chance, he loses that chance, that other chance they give him of being a security guard. Then he goes to WSU, and look what happens within a month of him being there. The guy's having problems, fighting with his professor, and having issues with women to the point where they're documenting his disturbing behavior. I mean, if this doesn't all equal up or add up to a pretty clear sign of escalation, I don't know what else is. His opportunity, or him ever thinking he was going to be a police officer, went out the door there. Like, with all that history, you think law enforcement is going to be like, all right, you know what, let's give him a chance. The dude's 28 years old, or was 28 years old. He's damn near 30. He was a grown man. It's one thing if he had some problems when he was younger and they stopped and there was a time frame in which they stopped, but these issues persisted all the way up until this time frame. What makes you think he's going to change at 29, 30, 34? This guy was never going to be a police officer. He was never going to be in law enforcement, and he knew that. And I think he took it out on those poor individuals in that house that did not deserve. Nobody deserved that. Much less just some kids that are enjoying their lives and trying to, go from being a child to an adult in college. You know what I mean? Just doing normal things, and this dude comes in and just ruins everything. Now, as far as does Ann Taylor want him more alive? Probably. I mean, she has a lot to gain. She's making quite a bit of money, ain't she? Thank you, Rebecca Bruce, for your $5 super sticker. We appreciate that. Thought the PCA said the DD was delivered. I believe so. Do I think that some of the 12 previous times Bryan was doing a practice run, timing his drives, planning it all, was his 3 laps around the 11-12 building building up courage that night was the night. Let's break this down. So I do not think the 12 times before were practice runs. I do think that maybe perhaps it was learning the drive, but I don't know about driving directly by the house. Well, they could be you know what? Yeah, they could be practice runs. I read that wrong. I think he was planning it all. It was his 3 laps around. I don't know if it was around the 3 laps around where to build courage. What do we know happened around 4 a.m.? We know that the DoorDash driver delivered an item. And what do we know about DoorDash delivery? It's not always the same DoorDasher. And so what else do we know? We know that Xana's house, or the victim's house, 1122 King Road, was technically on King Road, but it faced Queen Road, right? So that could be confusing for somebody who's not familiar with the area. Now, if you're ordering something from Jack in the Box, that's from Pullman, you know, if you got somebody who, you know, just lived in Pullman and really didn't travel to Moscow, you may have some problems getting that delivery, right? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I would assume, this is just my assumption, that there was probably some sort of indicator on to alert the DoorDasher that this was the correct home. Whether that be a light on the outside, inside, or both, I think that was the case. You know, maybe the front door was open or something to that nature. That way, that would allow the DoorDasher to know with the light on. I don't know. Either way, Bryan Kohberger would not have known that Xana had ordered a meal. That would, how would he know that, right? So if he's driving, let's put ourselves unfortunately in those shoes. But if he's driving around and he sees a light on inside and a light on outside, he may just be thinking to himself that somebody's awake, right? And then at 4 o'clock, Xana gets her order and she turns off the light. At 4 o'clock, Bryan Kohberger isn't there. You know, he had finished passing like 3 minutes earlier, and he wasn't about to pass for another 4 minutes. So there's like a 9-minute window there. Now, we tracked it down, right? And we calculated how long it takes to get in from the King Road intersection to go all the way around the apartment complex and back out that intersection. We have seen multiple persons who have taken that trip down to Moscow and have made that drive. And fortunately, they posted up online, and that gives us a consistent baseline as far as how long it took that vehicle to drive. So it's not very difficult to figure that out, right? I think it was a total of an average 30 something seconds, you know, to drive the entire thing back and forth. I think it was 28, but we'll give it 30. And, you know, what is a DoorDash driver doing? It's freezing. It's overcast. It's cloudy, right? You can't see no stars. So it makes it colder. So what are they going to do? You think they're going to stand there and play, you know, and I'm not talking about you, Jim. I'm just saying in general, what do we think they're going to do? They're going to, you know, play hokey pokey or something? No, they're going to drop the food off, take a picture and alert them, get in their car and get out of there. It's cold. It's late. It's 4 a.m. They probably want to go to sleep. Right. You know, so how long were they there for? 3 minutes, 2 minutes tops, you know, 30 seconds in, 30 seconds out, a minute to drop the food off, take a picture and get back in the car. So 2 to 3 minutes tops that it takes for somebody to get off the car, take a picture, get in their car, put their seatbelt on and go. If they arrived there at 4 o'clock, as the PCA states, they would have been out of that area completely by 4:03. That's a full minute before Bryan Kohberger pulls into that intersection. So to him, at the very least, he may be seeing a car pulling, driving out of there, but he doesn't know who that is unless that person has like the biggest billboard sign that says DoorDash on the top of their car. But even at that doesn't indicate that they were at the victim's house. So he may have just seen another car drive out, if anything. Then he pulls in and then he sees that now whatever indicator was on to alert the DoorDash driver, well, it's not off. Now, to him, he doesn't know it was an indicator, so he may just think whoever's in the house is now asleep. Now it's time to go in. You know what I'm saying? I think that's where that part is. And that's what I think happened that night. Let's see. Then the WSU campus pullover when the officer walks up to Bryan's driver's side window. Looks like Bryan may have locked his keys in the car. Big scratch above his window panel. Huh. I don't notice that. Daniel, why would they hold him an hour for a traffic stop? I don't recall him being held for an hour at a traffic stop. Let me know, Rebecca, what you mean by that, which one you're referring to. But I don't remember him being there for an hour on any traffic stop. Well, they cleared him from whatever it was that the students were accusing him from. So Soy Joy says, if the university cleared him, why couldn't he have kept his job? He got fired because he got into a physical altercation with his professor on December 9th. And they had given him a behavioral plan because he had gotten into another verbal altercation with John Snyder early in September. And so it was because of the altercations that he had with his professor and his boss, basically, is why he got fired. Not because of the fact that there were a few girls that came forward and were concerned about his behavior. Let's see. Do you think the prosecution would drop some bombshells at trial? Oh, tons. I mean, there's some things that I know that I wish I could say and put out there, but that I know that's going to be dropped. This guy likes his cell phones. This guy likes his cell phones and he likes his apps. Remember that. Because I think those are going to play a huge role in this case as far as like deletion, location, and maybe even following other people. Let's see. Miss Doglover, the Asian female, was UK News. Here, she was apparently seen with him occasionally. Right. I mean, he probably had friends. Remember, his defense team indicated that that he confused niceties for romantic interests. Right. So at some point, I mean, he was only there for a few months. He probably made some friends that probably found out fairly quick because, again, they couldn't find anybody who would talk about him that, they were friends with him. Nobody was friends with him. He had no friends. None. He was a loner. He was by himself at night, driving around or jogging. I mean, that's what his defense team says, that every night, or not every night, but he would go out on drives at night or runs and stuff like that, which kind of defeats the entire, somebody framed him because his habit was changing. It was changing often, or not often, but it was ongoingly changing from running and jogging at all hours of time of day and night and different locations to now going on long drives all over the place. So, it's a change in what he was doing. So somebody had to have been real close with him. But yeah, I have that. I have that one. I'm very familiar with what it is. Welcome, Jennifer. Welcome to the crew. Welcome to the crew. I already got that one. And TCF also, welcome to, well, thank you for your 1 month membership. Thank you. Oh, geez. GT comes with a $49.99. Recently found your channel and glad I did. I appreciate the respect you display while remaining open-minded as you review facts and all potential possibilities without assuming things. Looking at things from various perspectives. Great work. Thank you, JT. I appreciate that so much. You're amazing. You're a rock star. You guys are amazing. C. Vanderhoof became a newest member as well. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to drop that Discord post as soon as we're done here, guys. I promise you. Do you remember the good birthing hips date? You know what? This is the reason why I laugh is I actually crossed it out. I have my listing. Let me pull this to the side real quick. Right. It's fine. It's scratched out, but at the very top, it says good birthing hips. Yes, I do recall that. Now, the good birthing hips, again, I'm fair. I'm fair. Despite what the pro burgers will say, I am fair. That's from a movie called Dark Shadows. Johnny Depp, he is a vampire in that movie, and he's talking to, I guess, some human like relative of his, and he's talking about this female that he's attracted to, and he says that she has good birthing hips. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the movie that they were watching that night or that around that time, because that movie came out in 2012. He would have been around, I don't know, maybe not. Well, I don't know how old he would have been, but because he was 28 and 22. So about 10 years, about 18. Yeah, maybe 18, 19 years old around the time that movie came out. So, yeah, I don't know. But I do remember that there was more to that than just that, right? He followed her. He went into the house. He tried to tickle her. He made her feel uncomfortable to the point where she had to go and fake throwing up to get him to leave. So you have a person there that doesn't understand any of the boundaries, physical or any of those things. And so, I think that there's some nefarious, or there's some things there that make you, I don't want to say perk your eye or anything or your ear, but there's some things that you very red flaggish. This is going to be the trial of the century. It definitely seems like it so far. And then again, it probably won't. You know, for it to be the trial of the century, what has to happen, right? It's probably got to be very controversial. It's probably got to be a lot of bombs coming in on both sides. Like, boom, you know, the cop here did this or didn't do that. There's a camera that's inverted that makes no sense because it's inverted. Anyways, that's a jab. I'm sorry. I don't think we're going to see any of that. I think it's going to be pretty clear cut. I think they have a lot of evidence against him. I think it might be just kind of like, hey, this is what he did. This is what he did. And what do we have the defense saying now? The defense isn't even arguing that it's Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the knife sheath. Their whole argument is that somebody else did it. Who? They don't know. But somebody. Like, that's going to be a hard sell, because the person that, if they're going to go in and say, hey, this person specifically did it, they would have to say, well, he was out and about that night, and that person's going to have no alibi like Bryan Kohberger. He's going to have possession of a white vehicle at the time of the incident without a front license plate, like Bryan Kohberger did. No alibi like Bryan Kohberger did. Those type of things. Because if they point at one guy and the guy's like, I was asleep all night at my house, and they have his phone and his phone can, corroborate. I mean, that's a hell of a lot more evidence of that he was at his house asleep than Bryan Kohberger was at Walleye Park or anywhere else. We know for a fact that Bryan Kohberger was up, alert, and out and about in his white Elantra without a front license plate that night, because he is admitted to that. And we know for a fact he was out there by himself because he admitted to that. Do you think we'll ever know what happened and why? And is this what Bryan wants? This could be what Bryan wants. I do not know if we'll ever know what happened and why. He is the only person that knows that, and he's the only person that can say that. And he's not even told his own lawyers or attorneys where he was that night. I just recently brought it up in the court documents not too long ago, where I think it was probably about 5 shows ago, guys, where we highlighted how it had stated that on Brian, we were talking about Bryan Kohberger's alibi, and how Bryan Kohberger's team had stated that that's all they knew. Once they get more information, they would let the prosecution know. But all they knew was that Bryan Kohberger was out and about that night, and that he was south and west of Poland, and that was it. They don't know exactly where he was at the time of the murders, because even though it says that he, they bring up Walleye Park, they don't specifically say that that's where he was at 4:20 a.m. or at 4 o'clock in the morning. They just say at some time throughout that night, he may have gone that direction. So even his own attorneys don't know. And you have to ask yourself why. Is that because his attorney is fairly knowledgeable and probably understands what kind of defendant she has, and is telling her, hey, I don't want to know where you were at, because I want to make sure that I have plausible deniability when I try your case? Or do you think it's because, Ann Taylor went up to him and said, hey, where were you that night? Unless it's somewhere I do not want to know. Those are pretty much the only two options. What other option can there be that Bryan Kohberger would withhold that information from his lawyer? Let me know in the comment section. Let me know in the live chat too. What other option could there be for Bryan Kohberger to be out there and not tell his attorney where he was that night? If not, because it's probably in his best interest that she don't know. It's the only reason why. Are you going to the trial, Daniel? I'm hoping so. At this point, that was what I was aiming to do. I'm not too sure now. I had an incident with my arm that actually took me out of work for quite a bit of time. I'll probably be back at work for only a few months. I'm hoping to be back at work within the next 6 weeks. I was thinking sooner, but it's probably looking like 6 weeks at least, depending on how my EMG goes when they check for my nerve damage. But what do you call it? I'm not sure. I might have to be at work by then. We'll see. But if everything goes well, I think I'm going to try to get it. I already know that I have a roommate or I have a place where I can stay. The Goncalves family has, they offered up a place for me to stay if I go up there. And so I truly appreciate their generosity and their hospitality for that assistance as well. Just putting it out there before everybody starts saying something weird or that there's some sort of cahoots or I don't know what. It came out here and on the live chat and said that. So it's no surprise. But yeah, if I go, I plan on attending probably the later part, more so like the verdict. I don't know if I'd be there for the beginning part. I think it's expected to be 6 weeks. I could probably spend about a week, and I think I would rather spend it on the last week of trial. I would rather be there for the verdict as well. So I'd probably get there for closing arguments, and then, maybe a day before closing arguments, and then stay there. I truly don't anticipate this being something that's going to take a lot of deliberation. I think that it'll probably take half the time of Richard Allen. And I think that was like 3 days. So I'll probably get there maybe 2 days before closing arguments. So that way I can stay there for the verdict. If I go. I mean, that's the plan right now, right? But we'll see. I think the harsh grading towards females was a power and control issue, which also happens in the underlying issues of his crime. That's true. The LE class he got transferred from, could LE access that even if it's sealed due to the juvenile? Part of the reason not getting Pullman job. Yes, LE does have access to things like that. You know, I used to be in law enforcement. I know that there are certain crimes that would follow you in certain things. Wait, hold on. The LE class incident. That's not something that's on file. I don't think he got anything on file. I was thinking about the stolen cell phone incident, but I don't think he was a minor for that either. I mean, it's school record. I mean, it got out somehow, right? Somebody has some records of it, but I don't know. There are some crimes that will follow you even after you're a juvenile to an adult. They're more severe ones, obviously. My daughter is autistic. That's BS about his defense of that. Grasping at anything, in my opinion. I 100% agree. My nephew, he's 100% autistic, and yeah. Let's see. And Jen, I see your messages or your comments. I'm only talking about certain specific things about what they're referring to. This podcast isn't about talking about everything today. We'll get into some of those things that you're having concerns about at another date. Why would they hold him after an hour for a traffic stop? Oh, yeah. I don't remember where that was at. Hey, what's going on? What's the obsession? I emailed you back. I do want to get in touch with you about doing something. I heard some things about your most recent live, and I'd like to talk to you about it. Give me, if you could email me back, I'd like to have you on the show. Steven says $200 per hour plus overtime for Ann Taylor. She has easily made over $1 million in this case. Meanwhile, Ben Thompson makes approximately $190,000 per year with no overtime. Yeah, well, I mean, it takes a certain person to do and defend certain people, and so I guess they get compensated as such. But you're right. I mean, it should be the other way around, but it is what it is. He was so smart, he took his phone. You know what, Jeremiah? That's a great point. He was so smart, he took his phone, he took his own car, he left the knife sheath, he bought the knife on Amazon. With the knife sheath, he got it delivered to his house. He used his own credit card. I mean, are you really shocked he got caught? Like, I don't understand why people are shocked that he got caught. No apologies there for that one. That one's funny. The DDA said 4 a.m., but doesn't mean exactly at 4 a.m. It could be at 3:57, for example. Yeah, most things are approximations. I mean, we already know that they weren't completely accurate on certain times. The defense talks about how the phone did go off service, but not until 2:54. I think it was the 911 call was made at 11:56, and I think early on it was reported that officers were dispatched at 11:58, and some people were confusing that as that's when the call came in. Oh, that's when they were dispatched. It took 2 minutes to figure out what was going on so that they can dispatch people and where, right? And so, I saw that. But for the most part, approximations is, I think, what it said. At approximately 4 a.m., this is what happened. It could be 3:57. It could be 4:04. It could be, 3:45. That's pretty close. I mean, 3:50 is close to 4 o'clock. So could be a lot of things. Why would he drive his own car right up to the house on all those cams? How did he know his car couldn't be identified on camera? Well, here, he's taken classes in forensics. He's studied that in DeSales. We looked at his at a college career path for a university, or for the DeSales University criminal justice master's degree plan. And in there are forensic classes. And I think he would have known that, the ring cam footage and all those other type of home security surveillance cameras aren't the best. And so what do? You stay away from main drives, main highways. You cross at intersections where there's not cameras. So that way that the only thing that you get captured on are home camera systems. Now, ring devices, home security systems, where are they located? They're usually located on the front or on the corner of the front of the house. And where do they face? They face forward towards the street. And typically the street is going to run perpendicular or right across from the house, right? It's not parallel. And so if you have a camera that's facing out towards the street that's running across from you, then what are you going to capture? You're going to capture a lot of profile, a lot of the side angles. This happened at night. He probably is aware of how light manipulates the camera so that way you can't see a lot of details in the front. So he's probably riding with his high beams on. That's what it looks like from the images that I've seen from 1112 King Road. The light camera that's next door that captures him coming in and out of the King Queen Road intersection. Light, he probably knows those things. So there's reasons why he's going out at night, reasons why his high beams are on. And you run a bigger chance of getting away with something like this if you stick to those things. That's exactly what he did, in my opinion. And it's not so much that it's not going to be able to be determined make model, but it's going to be hard to find uniqueness if there's a scratch on a door or a small ding or any of those things are going to be a lot harder to find on ring devices and stuff like that versus government issued equipment or state official equipment issued equipment. Those things they have higher technology, better cameras. They're designed to capture detail at night or in low visibility and stuff. Man, I'm getting stuck there and whatnot. So he probably didn't know he wasn't going to get identified, but he took every opportunity or everything he could do that would give him the most favor of not being caught on camera there. And he would have gone away with it because it wasn't the cameras that caught him, right? It wasn't the cameras that caught him. It wasn't the fact that he took his phone that caught him. I mean, all those things could have been real and still existed had he not left the knife sheath. And I think he honestly probably gets away with it, to be honest with you. And, fortunately, he made that mistake. That was the biggest mistake he made. All right, guys, I'm going to do this for another 3 minutes. Let me see if I have any supers. Make sure that way I'm not missing anybody who paid for a comment or a question. I do not. I'm all the way at the bottom. Let me double check here. Again, thank you, JT. Thank you, Natalie James. You guys are amazing. Thank you, L Hitch, Miss Dog Lover, Carol, Rebecca, Jennifer, TCF, and now C. Vanderhoof. Thank you guys. You guys are amazing. Hope I didn't miss anybody. Stephanie in the beginning. And Curious Contrarian. Man, just want to get mad if I don't bring her up. Steelers fan. And Carol. You guys are amazing. You guys are awesome. Let me see. Any last questions or comments for me? Thanks for the awesome live and chat and mods watching, and thanks for a great conversation. Thank you. We appreciate that. Let's see. What did Jennifer say that's not true? Oh, I'm seeing some things pop up in the chat, in the live chat. If you're watching on the replay, Chris, that's why you want to hit that notification button so you get a part of this. Right. 5 incidents prior to him killing the kids isn't important to discuss every time. Well, if that was the case, I mean, I'd be doing a 7-hour live every time I got onto the show, Yeah, we're talking about specifics. We're talking about his behaviors with WSU students right now, and his behaviors in the past that pointed him in the direct or pointed law enforcement are going to be pointing towards as something. You know, his defense wants it all thrown out because it's part of his autism. So they're going to want all these people who are going to be testifying against any of this to be not able to, because it's not fair, because they're talking about his autism and that shouldn't be used against him. And I'll be honest with you, man. Ann Taylor's good. You know, she really is, but I don't think she's going to get away with that one. You know, but I think let me do my psychic thing. I think that's where they're going to go with that. They're going to try to claim that when it comes time for character people or witnesses or just witnesses that can talk about his behaviors before and after the crime, they're going to try to get that taken off and say, no, that's part of his autism. You can't do that. Can't talk about his incidents where, he was acting weird or creeping people out or making people uncomfortable or where there was some serious disturbing behavior. Don't want to talk about it because those are symptoms of his autism, not anything else. I don't know. I don't like it. Let's see. I believe he meant to leave it. You believe he meant to leave the knife sheath truth? Why would he mean? I mean, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, but I've heard that. You know, some folks say he meant to leave it. He was trying to leave the knife sheath behind. I mean, could that be his floppy disk? You know how BTK ended up getting caught, right? He submitted a floppy disk and they ended up tracking him down or whatever, right? But he was wanting to get caught, the Zodiac killer was wanting to get caught. You don't put out hints and clues to who you are unless you want to get caught. That builds up the excitement, that builds up the the mystery. Who is this person? You know what I'm saying? And when they find out who you are, you're like, whoa, this guy's now famous, yada yada yada. In order for him to have ever reached the status of a BTK or a Ted Bundy, let's just say that's what he wanted to do, he would have had to have gotten caught. You don't get there without getting caught. The Zodiac, I think they've here recently kind of figured out who he was for the most part. I know Jack the Ripper, they figured out who he was. But does anybody remember who their names are? I mean, maybe those that are like 100% into like cold cases or serial killers, they're going to know the names of, those individuals. But Dennis Rader, because he got caught. Obviously, if Dennis Rader didn't get caught alive, and let's just say he got caught after he passed, he never had that hearing where he spoke about everything he did, whatever, he'd always be known just as BTK. The Zodiac, people know who his name is. Jack the Ripper, people know who his name is. They don't call him that still. It's the mystery that they remember. The only way you get notarization for this is if you get caught. And if his goal was for him to be famous by this, then he would have had to have gotten caught. And leaving a knife sheath behind is one way to do it. Let's see. So he's going to, this will be the last one. So he's going one further where he's caught, but he'll be the first to be exonerated. I get what you mean. So he's the one that's making this go on longer and longer. He's delaying this, and yet he's the one that said that he couldn't wait to be exonerated, and he's the one that's delaying it. 100%. 100%. Okay, demise. That's funny. I don't know what that means, but all right. All righty, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Ring the notification bell. I'm going to be on Warning Label Nina's channel tomorrow around 6:30 p.m. Central. I might do a members only live right afterwards. Might do it right before, somewhere in between there. But I'll be there. And then I think Tuesday I have another live show. I invited Watch the Obsession to come on Tuesday. I'll let you guys know if she accepts the invite to come on. We're going to talk about, the 911 call. We're going to talk. I have an enhanced version. I might get my buddy Jeff, who's enhanced it for me, to come on so that way he can kind of explain it. But there are some things that that happened during the 911 call that she's aware of, that I'm aware of, that happened. And I think we've gotten it from two different places, but the same. I know one part of that conversation. She's familiar with the other part. And so I want to get us together and see, the commonality. So hopefully we can do that on Tuesday. Make sure you like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell. Liking the content tells the YouTubes that you like it. I know I've been saying it over and over again, but I got to remind everyone, because I still get messages saying I didn't get notified. But you're not getting notified because you're not liking. If you're liking other channels, well, those are the ones you're going to get notified of, even if you hit the notification button. So if you do me a favor, hit the notification button and then also share it with anybody else who loves true crime. I'd appreciate it. You guys have a great night. Have a safe weekend. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.